Okay, these lights are strong, yes. So that's my cue to start. Hello and welcome everyone. Thanks for attending my session. I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Fianna. I work at SideFX, and today we're going to look at how to make how I made a paper crane. And then also some very non-origami stuff. All powered by Houdini 21. So here we have a list of things that we're going to cover, and these are only just a tiny fraction of the whole of the Houdini 21 release, which is, believe it or not, still quite fresh for at least even myself, and I'm sure for many others, because there were so many areas of development. Something happened with my mic. Okay. Anyway, so we're gonna just cover some of these, and we plan to also have additional presentations at the Equinox in Toronto, which is happening later in September, the week of the 22nd. It's 23rd to 25th, I think. So there's gonna be, again, like a lot of presentations on the new features within Houdini 21. Because otherwise it's going to be information overload. So the first thing we're going to look at is quad remesh. And if you guys have been following Houdini releases, the past few releases, you'll be like, but why, Fianna, are you going on again about quad remesh? Is it finally out of beta? No, it's not. But like, believe me, like I asked this to the developer myself, and I want to know where is the state of things in the quad remesh, and particularly for me, because I like hard surface geometry, so I always ask, like, can it handle hard surface geometry, like CAD data, for example? And again, the answer was not yet. So I was like, I'm still gonna try. So then I picked something like a little bit hard edge, doesn't really have like any soft, like kind of round surfaces, but anyway, hard surface nonetheless. So with that, I actually, like, you're wondering, why are you doing quad remesh? So I actually converted, like I use this Huanyan like 2D to 3D generator to convert an image of a paper crane into a 3D model. And so generally you're going to get stuck with pretty unusable like mesh to do any sort of meaningful texturing with. So that's why we're going to put it through the quad remesh. And if you haven't used quad remesh before, you should just know that you should generally stick a remesh node after it, because quad remesh doesn't like long stringy polygons, doesn't process them well, and probably it'll just take longer compute. So just throw a remesh to make it fairly even topology for it to crunch through. And so what is new in Houdini 21 versus 20.5? You can say not a whole lot, seemingly, at least for what I used on this crane like little demo. So on the left side, you'll see in the alignment tab, there isn't this adaptivity, quad sizing in particular. There's also edge flow control, which I tried to use and didn't give me any sort of like pleasing results. So for the quad sizing, I used it in conjunction with a mask, which gave me like decent results. So there isn't this in 20.5. Yeah. And how I generated that mask was using the measure sub. So I just kind of captured this curvature, like the hard edges, and fed it into the quad remesh, this mask right here. So you can see on the left side, there isn't, I mean, we're using this adaptivity, but it's not like those lines are still pretty squirrely. And over here, even though the value is quite low, it gives us like pretty decent uniform straight lines. You can see that when we switch between the without curvature and with curvature, you get like much more ideal results. So there is an update in the quad remesh, and even though it's still in beta, like you can use it for things. And then, so if you look at this mesh, actually, before we get into new subdivide and subdivide, there's like too much geometry that we don't really need to have. So in Houdini 21, there's a new unsubdivide. So that's pretty straightforward. What that's going to do is going to reduce the subdivision count. And there's 2 algorithms that you can choose. I don't have any idea like what each does specifically. I just like tried. And for me, bilinear did the better result. There's also the Campbell-Clark option to choose from. And for my mesh, the depth of just 1 was enough to just remove things, like clean up the mesh a bit. And of course, if you have geometry that is like properly quad topology, you can of course go much further with your reduction. But yeah, this is just something that was pushed out through the 2D to 3D conversion. So that's that. So next new feature in Houdini 21 is UV flatten from points. So you can kind of look at this as a combination of auto UV auto seams together with UV flatten, because it will allow you to just kind of auto generate seams. And there's 2 options. So there's one with like a second input. We're going to look at that first, which is just scattering points to the scatter sub on the crane geometry, and it will help the UV flatten from points decide where to make the cuts. There's also a manual input where you can choose the this point source. If you choose first input, you can just manually pick the areas where you think would be great to have as a main UV island, and there are some additional controls to help give additional points to ease distortions, but you'll have to play with that to just kind of get the desirable result that you want for your UV task. So, and all of this actually stemmed from the idea I had when in the dev cycle I heard about this scatter sub, which maybe some of you may have seen already, which was covered like in the presentation prior to mine from Omar Zarifi. So there's a new scatter shapes sub, and I thought, like, what can we do to, like, what can we make with that? It's a very simple node, but like, you know, when you think of things with patterns, you think of like paper, origami, maybe wrapping paper. But like origami, I thought, hey, there's like nice distribution of shapes, colors. We have a bunch of new noises and also this scatter shape sub. So I thought, like, I'm gonna check it out because it sounds weird, but like we're in the dev cycle and we ourselves get excited about like new nodes that are coming from development. And yeah, I just wanted to try it out. So here's a selection of some of the noises or patterns that are shipping in Houdini 21. I didn't include them all, but I thought these ones were pretty interesting. There's the hyperbolic tile, chladni, phaser noise, bubble noise, and all of them, of course, have parameters that you can, you know, dial in to get the look what you want. But I didn't want to do that for all of them and give you guys seizures, so just the one to illustrate. And so that brings us to the scatter shapes. So as I said, it's a seemingly simple node. I also use the hard shape. There's a bunch of shapes that you can, like I have here that I converted from SDF to mono. And if you put down the base scatter shape, it uses stars just as a placeholder, so you have something to work with. And the nice thing about this node is that it has a lot of built-in functionality. Like, they're very basic, simple things, but these are things that you wouldn't have to make yourself, like to basically clutter your network, to have to, transform things or like scale stuff or rotate. These are all built within the node, and you can tweak it how you want. So as I said, there's a lot of nice controls built in, and you have the option to keep things as like mechanical or as organic as you would like. So here you're just like displacing the positions of the stars, the various rotations. You can have uniform or variance, like their own. The density you can control very easily. It's just easy. So it's a relaxing tool to just like try shapes and like, have fun. And there's also colors. You can assign colors. This all sounds very like trivial, but sounds weird, but like I didn't expect any of this when I was going through the node. I'm like, hey, cool. I don't have to make my own ramp. I can just do it there. There's a bunch of preset ramps. I can change my own. I can put in a background, background color. And then I can also take all of these shapes and put them together. So in Houdini 21, Omar mentioned, we have this thing called an ear. And basically, it just allows you to take all these like individual inputs. Previously, you would have to do that like manually in 20.5, but now you can just plug all of that in the one cable into another node that accepts this input. And, you just have like a tidier network because of that. And here, I'm just like trying to demonstrate the accessibility of ideation in COPS, because it's fast. It doesn't cost you anything. You just throw things together. Does it work? Does it not work? Just everything updates, like viewports, the node previews, everything just goes. And it's a 2K resolution. I also worked in 4K. It was okay. Like I worked on Mac. I worked on PC. We saw this. And not only are we confined to 2D shapes, we have all our classic 3D modeling tools that can be fed back into Copernicus. So if there are some shapes that are easier to just make in 3D, I can make them in 3D. I can adjust them accordingly. It's just a very flexible ecosystem. For example, there's like Sculpt. There's new additions to Sculpt brushes. There's like drag deform. In the drag deform segment, there's additional new brushes there that I encourage you to check out. There's masks, and it's all just within the radial menu, so you can like access them to create your organic shapes. And you don't have to care like, oh, does this make sense like as a 3D object? No, it doesn't have to. As long as it works from like orthographic view, gives you the shape that you need, you just convert that to the outlines and go make your pattern and like design what you need for your assets. Here I have my custom ramps. I just overlay it with some seemingly classic geometric shapes that I've seen in references for the origami patterns. And then I just apply it to my crane geometry. And full disclosure, I didn't use the UV flatten from points for this because I wanted the clean, straight lines. So I just like did a manual UV flatten, pick my seams, and applied my texture from COPS onto the crane. So like, what's next? Omar also covered the bake geometry textures, like the ability to bake your textures and geometry in Copernicus. So if you've already seen that, sorry for the repeat, but it's a different example. Just take note that there is the bake geometry texture cop, so you can put that down. And this is a like overview of all the settings. maybe we should do like a proper like isolated video for that to cover this in the future, because I think there's a lot of things that could be further explained. And then if you want to just like have something ready and you don't want to you're too lazy to put down like SOP import like I am, you can just type tab bake setup and like you put it down and you get all this set up. This here, you just load your low resolution geometry with the UVs, your high res geo, and your cage. And if you have all of this set up like that, you're going to use the tracing node, the surface normal, to just like do your baking with. But also, if you want to have Houdini make your cage mesh, then you can just disable that connection and select the tracing mode. And here you'll have the option to control the amount of offset you need for your cage if your results are like clipping. So here's something that I have that I made with like classic Boolean geometry, which is like very ugly, but I just wanted to get some shapes. So here is what I was putting into my SOP import high node, and here is something that I quickly did the quad remesh on and cut some rough UVs. I did a very shit job with the UVs, but I just wanted to test the baker actually. And then I baked it out and got this as the result. So that takes us to ID mask. So the thing about ID mask is like all these nodes existed in Houdini 20.5, but for example, like you want to import your low resolution geometry, you want to get basically your UV map, and say you want to pick out like specific islands that you want to mask to apply textures to, or crop an image and project that texture on it. So previously there wasn't this handy eye color picker to just select your islands. So now we have that, and it just populates here. You can just pick what you need. The only caveat is that, as Omar told me, you have to have your display flag on the segment by connectivity, then select your ID to mask, and then you do your selection. But it's pretty handy. And lastly, we have the mask from curves, which, as I mentioned, if you want to grab like a reference image and just isolate a specific part, you can do so by putting down a mask from curves. Use a curve 3D to draw the shape that you want to have as a mask. It's live, so you can always just go back and edit, and then you isolate the part that you want, and you like layer it onto your texture, and that's pretty much it. So here's some like work in progress stuff I saved over a file, so I don't have anything complete to show you, but you get the point. We have a baker now in 21, and I think that's kind of it for today. I maybe have gotten a bit fast, but there was one more thing that I did want to show as a noise because I couldn't include it previously. Yeah. So I don't know if anyone's in a rush to go or you want to see this. Yes. So that sounds like Jeff. I'm ready to call that shit. So we have this like crystal noise, and it has the coolest icon, by the way. And it doesn't look like much here, but if we put down sub and let's see, test, put shader ball. So did I not choose this? Am I gonna embarrass myself now?
External.
Thanks. There we go. Sorry, it's been a long day. So there's also preview material. We can plug that in and just get it there and see what this looks like. So it doesn't look like much now, but we can change the size a bit. Maybe add some color. Something amethysty. There's also, I think, not this one, but the height to shadow is new. Is that correct, Omar? That the height to ambient occlusion, that was in 25, I think. Yeah. I get a start. Okay. And let's do that. Get some color. No. Oops. Think this, and there's also height to normal. Put that later. Have you guys like used cops yourselves? Hands up. Oh, quite a bit. Okay, cool. So what else? Height to shadow. Let's get this guy in. I mean, oh, too much.
But it had
What?
It's a immersive. It's all.
Let's do a bit. Okay. Yeah, something like that. I kind of don't even need to talk. I can just stand up here and like connect things. I can't multitask too much these days. Oops. Those hits. Does it sparkle? Anyway, so yeah, I had like a nicer version down here. So yeah, crystal noise. That's it. That's all I got. Thanks, guys.
like close.
Yeah.
The mic?
You gotta wait for the mic. Also, I can't promise I can answer anything right now.
I've been making paper cranes since 4 years old, so I know pretty much what it is.
Okay.
I thought, having seen the title initially, I thought you modeled the paper folding from the square paper. And this is not the case, but have you ever tried?
Of course, yes. I also wrote in the description that this is not what the presentation will be about. But yes, my father taught me how to fold paper cranes when I was a kid. So, and like not the cheap version, like the one where the double fold over the legs. Yeah. So yes.
One thing I'm wondering is, so I noticed that you're able to use the quadra mesh, then you go to the unsubdivide, which I know the unsubdivide is supposed to actually be looking at a Kalmar-Clark distribution of polygons and then actually trying to reduce them based on that. I'm actually surprised it works very well with just a simple quadra mesh, and I'm just curious whether is there something about the quadra mesh or some settings or something that you have to do to ensure that unsubdivide actually works better as far as like removing edge loops and stuff like that? Or?
I mean, I didn't try with like an extensive library of geometries to like verify, but I didn't do anything special with quadri mesh to put into the unsubdivide. Just I couldn't unsubdivide it as much as I wanted because it was still like kind of ugly geometry on some parts because of the, let's say like a scan output. I don't know, it's not scanning, but converted output. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I used the bilinear, so I don't know if that's, yeah. The Kemal Clark one was like, well, yeah.
Maybe that's why you work.
Yeah.
Because
It kept it more straight. Yeah.
Okay. Hi.
Hi.
I was just curious if you would get better results by just doing quadri mesh with fewer vertices directly compared to
Yeah,
quadri mesh
yeah,
and
you-
subdivide.
I did try that, but somehow it just like came to this visual ending. I almost thought you were gonna say like, why you didn't just like prompt the reference image to 3D? Please, nobody asked me that.
Okay.
Yes.
Was this origami crane modeled procedure using Houdini nodes, or was it modeled in another tools such as Maya or Blender?
So is none of those. Is actually from an image which I don't have here.
Yeah.
But I used Pinocchio, which installed this library of the Haiyan like 2D to 3D conversion, and it just gave me this mesh,
I got you.
which was like very unusable.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi there. Can you transfer data from Subworld to Copernicus?
Yeah.
Any data, and can I use my own ID, let's say?
Yeah. I converted.
And is there like a VEX that I can use inside Copernicus, like something with a...
That's a question for Omar.
Okay.
Maybe.
Good. Sure. You can use Vex in Copernicus. There's a Wrangle node. However, it's kind of discouraged because then everything has to get copied to main memory and then you're running on CPU, whereas everything else is running on the GPU. So it's, as much as possible, it's preferable to use OpenCL snippets, which are they're a lot simpler than old OpenCL, which required you to kind of know the really low-level kernel language. So
I'm so glad you're here.
that's a really important piece of detail, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, I must get this. Yeah.
I think nobody else has any questions, so I'm free. Thank you.